Lockdown Talk Teil 2 am 18. November 2020. Wie geht es der Kletterwelt in Corona-Zeiten? In einer Zeit, in der wir uns gerade nicht sehen oder treffen können, da will ich nachfragen bei ganz verschiedenen Leuten aus der Szene. Ich will schauen, was sie bewegt, was sie im Lockdown so treiben und welche Themen vielleicht neben Corona untergehen, die aber eigentlich auch wichtig sind. Diesmal hören wir eine Stimme aus Fontainebleau und ich hoffe, ihr verzeiht, aber das Interview ist auf Englisch. Welcome to episode 75 of Weg bouldern. My name is Juliane Fritz and in this episode I chat with Zofia Reych. She is a boulderer from Fontainebleau and she's the founder of the Womens Bouldering Festival in Fontainebleau. You might also know her as a writer because she often tries to shed a light on certain topics in the climbing scene. For example, I like how she reflects why and if we really need women's only events in the climbing scene, which is interesting to hear because of her experience with the Womens Bouldering Festival. So I think she's a very interesting person to talk to. I always enjoy meeting her, and this time it is only an audio meeting. So have fun with this. Weg bouldern is possible because you listeners give me your support. Thanks to all the people who share episodes on social media or tell their friends about weg bouldern. If you like, you can also support weg bouldern with a little amount of money. I have a crowdfunding on the platform Steady, so check it out on wegbouldern.de. There you can become a supporter and then you get some extra content and goodies. And now on with the show. Zofia, the last time we met was in Berlin at the Felsheldinnen Festival, and there I promised to see you again this year in Fontainebleau, which did not work because of the corona pandemic. But it's nice to hear you now and to talk. Hello, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm really glad to be able to chat to you, albeit on the Zoom thing, whatever we're using.
Yeah, and how do you feel today? What have you been doing?
I have been gluing skirting boards to my walls because I am redecorating, completely renovating a house. And that was the challenge for today, skirting board.
Okay. And not only about today, but about the last weeks and month, I would like to know what is going on in your life and how has Corona changed what you do? I mean, you are working as a freelancer, you are bouldering a lot outside.
Yeah.
So how did Corona change what you do?
I mean, with Corona, I actually had the opportunity to pick up more work and do more freelance engagements for clients because as a marketing specialist, as a copywriter, these are the kind of things that were suddenly in higher demand because basically everything's moving online. But instead of grabbing that opportunity, I thought that I will allow myself to focus on a project that I have been thinking about for a very long time. And I actually drastically reduced the amount of work that I do for clients and focused on my own writing, a sort of just creative writing project that I've been thinking about for years. And the pandemic kind of just gave me an opportunity to focus on that and shut myself in the house and really just start writing. So that was great. And we are in second lockdown at the moment in France. It is less severe than the first lockdown. Basically, the first lockdown, you couldn't leave the house without a special document saying where you're going and why. And my partner actually got fined 100 meters from our house for stepping out with the dog because he forgot the document. So it was really, really, really strict. And also sports were forbidden. This time round, recreational sport is forbidden as well. But if you're a professional athlete or a sponsored athlete, then you actually can be exempt from it. So in theory, I could actually go climbing outside with a special paper saying that I represent brands that, I work with Friction Labs or some other companies. And that is sort of justifying my activity, because like I can't like, stop doing what I do for them, because then I don't deliver value. So I could actually be climbing quite a lot because the weather has been fantastic in the recent days, but I'm an anxious person and it just doesn't feel right to me, like I was checking for a long time if I actually could be exempt from this rule about not doing sports, which I personally think is somewhat weird and not sensible, that people are allowed to go to offices and people are allowed to go to supermarkets, but you cannot go into the forest unless it's within 1 kilometer from your house. That's really silly. And yeah, I should be, I guess, either rebelling against that rule or just using the options I have in navigating it. But yeah, the lockdown is just really good time for me in the sense that it allows me to focus on certain things that I maybe haven't had time and the focus to deal with before, and I'm writing that. So it's pretty good. I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky in the sense that the situation has not yet affected me negatively. And I'm really grateful for that.
I do want to talk about the writing a little bit more. Is it the book that you just announced?
Yes. It was so stressful to just say on social media, hey, I'm writing a book. But I share on social media quite regularly, and I just didn't feel like it was honest to be hiding such a big part of my daily life. I mean, I try to be honest and real on social media, while at the same time, I really sort of guard a lot of my personal life from being unnecessarily exposed, because, just social media is social media. You use it for certain reasons, and you just put out there the things that you believe you should be put out there. And I think if I'm writing a book, I am writing a book, and the reason why I'm writing it is because I want to create this story that I want it to be out for people to read. So it's actually something that I wanted to share and be like, hey, I'm writing something and I can't wait to be able to share more of it. So it's scary, but I'm also super excited that it's actually happening. And for the first time, it's just, instead of being frustrated that I'm not doing what I want to be doing, I feel excited that things are happening and I'm making it happen. So yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Did you somewhere say what it's going to be about? Because I did not read that.
Yes. Well, I'm trying to be very vague about it still, just because basically I've been dealing with it for such a long time that to me it seems like the project is well underway. But the reality is that I'm just at the beginning of that journey because I don't have a publisher yet. I haven't even started speaking to publishers. This is what's going to happen hopefully this coming week, because you just have to put together this massive comprehensive publishing proposal. And so basically the only thing that I feel comfortable sharing is that it is about climbing, and it is a non-fiction book. So it's, I'm an anthropologist by education, sort of. So just expect a lot of geekery about the climbing culture and community. That's the kind of topic we'll be dealing with.
It's really interesting, and I think some people know what kind of articles you're writing sometimes for magazines, and maybe there could be a hint what you're writing about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to
I'm really glad
reading about it.
I'm definitely going to put a lot of the things that I sort of think about on an everyday basis into the book in terms of feminism, diversity. That's really going to be an important part, but that might not necessarily be the main subject or the main angle. So it might be somewhat surprising. I don't know if it's going to be surprising to people. I just hope people will like it. When you write stories, whether they are real or fictional, what you want for people to enjoy them. And yeah, I kind of have the feeling if I enjoy writing it, then it should be enjoyable to read, but who knows? I mean, it's super scary. I've never written anything this big, and yeah, cross your fingers for me, please.
Yeah, I hope that you will find a good publishing company.
Yeah. I was thinking actually, a lot of people said to me, hey, why don't you self-publish it? Because I know financially these days, it's much more sensible to self-publish, but I don't want to be dealing with everything that comes in with that. I just want to write things and just then, have a publishing house take care of everything. So I hope I will be in the position to have that. But obviously there is no guarantee that any publisher will be interested. So I might yet turn to self-publishing. Oh, let's see what happens.
So if any publisher is listening.
Yeah, if any publisher is listening, get ready. My email is going to be in your inbox next week.
Yes. Okay, so this is something positive. Is there anything like you're struggling with these days?
I can't really say that I am because, the pandemic and everything else that's been going on in the world has put into perspective my struggles in the sense that I realized how incredibly privileged I am and how lucky I am. And even if I have some sort of, struggles that are just daily struggles or, trying to stay motivated and trying to maintain good mood and stuff like that. And in general, mental health and well-being, for sure, these might be challenges, but I wouldn't want to say they're struggles because I'm in such a good position to be supported in everything that I do. That, it's not bad. I've started therapy. That's absolutely great. I can't say oh, I struggle with my mental health. I started therapy. It's great. I'm learning things about myself. I'm learning to sort my head out, and I'm grateful for having this opportunity because again, not many people do and not everybody does. So no struggles my end so far, no corona in my direct surroundings. So I've been lucky so far, really, really lucky.
Yeah, and you've also been lucky that you were able to do the Womens Bouldering Festival this year.
Oh God, so lucky.
Yeah, so it was the third time that you did the festival, and I guess maybe you did not really believe that it would be possible this year.
No.
How were your feelings about this?
I mean, one of the reasons I started therapy was my anxiety levels before the festival, because I was like, my God, people work intensive care units, people work in such stressful situations and they have to deal with it. And I'm crumbling under the pressure of not knowing whether the festival is going to happen or not. And I just thought this is not sensible. I need to do something about it. But yes, the unknown was huge and it was completely back and forth until the very last moment. So kind of 3 days before the event, I was writing an assessment of corona risks and how we're going to mitigate them during the event and submitting that to the prefecture, not knowing whether they're going to say yes or no. And then the lockdown really kicked in, ban on events and stuff like that really kicked in the weekend after our event. So if it was a week later, we wouldn't be able to do it. And obviously we massively curbed the numbers. So actually this year we were thinking of having about 150 people, maybe more. But as soon as, it was apparent that Corona's not going away, we capped at 50. And that was completely an arbitrary choice. It was just we have to cap it at something, at something that's going to be hopefully sensible in regards to what rules are going to be in place when it's happening. And actually it was way below the official limits the moment when it happened. But I'm really happy that we limited it to that degree because it was much easier to actually maintain sort of real measures against the spread of the virus. And I'm not sure if we would be able to do it if there were more people on site. So it was incredible to be able to pull it off this year, even though it was so much smaller and so much more the first year felt super hectic because it was the first year, and the second year felt really like things were falling into place, and the third year was meant to be really perfecting what we're doing. Yeah. Instead, it was just a complete improvisation in the very last moment, because we lost all of our speakers. We had to get all new speakers, things like that. But it was so much more meaningful just because we came together in such a difficult time, and it was just quite a beautiful experience, I hope, for the participants as well, but certainly for everybody on the organizational side of things. It was great. It was actually great.
I was also thinking that maybe the third year would have been the year where things would have run more perfectly and you feel more secure in your position. Next year is going to be that year.
Yeah, that could be. That could be, depending on how the situation progresses. I mean, we were incredibly lucky and honored to work with Patagonia this year as well. Oh. And when I started talking to Patagonia, we were planning this quite big event, of 150 plus participants. And that's what we initially spoke to Patagonia about. And they were psyched to come on board and they were psyched to support us. And then everything crumbled down under the corona pressures. And, Patagonia stayed by our side. And thanks to their support, we were able to pull it off in the form that we did. So hopefully that collaboration will run into 2021. We're talking at the moment, but again, because, the situation is so volatile with the virus, nobody really knows what's going to happen. So let's see.
Mm-hmm. And the climbing scene in France or in Fontainebleau, what's the impact of the pandemic there? What do you feel like? Here in Germany, we're talking about that when the gyms close, then a lot more people go into the outdoor bouldering or climbing areas. It's very full there, people say. So what's the impact in Fontainebleau?
Actually, here you are not allowed to be further than 1 kilometer away from your house for the purposes of recreation. So the official rules of the lockdown are that you are allowed 1 hour, 1 kilometer radius from your house to walk the dog or go for a run, stuff like that, which, as I said earlier, is kind of really questionable because the forest is quite big and I'm sure people could fit there. The forest, the Alps, any outdoor areas in France could really be a safe space for people to be outside and to enjoy the outdoors. But I guess the rules have to be, they are a little arbitrary, and this is just what kind of became paradox this time, that you are not allowed to be in the forest. If you're a professional athlete, you are exempt from that. Also, like professional teams and stuff like that, so not only in climbing, but just athletes in other disciplines are allowed to train. And the same for climbing. Like if your income is from sponsorships, or if you've got some sort of agreement with brands that you're an ambassador and stuff like that, you can get a special document that allows you to go into the forest. So sort of like the hardcore, small core part of the Fontainebleau community, they are out there and they're doing their thing. Because, you can't expect Caroline Sino to suddenly just stop climbing again. Like, she needs to maintain her craft and art. And by being locked in the house, she can't do it. And that's her job. And in theory, I could have a similar arrangement. But it's just because, I'm an ambassador for some brands. But I just don't feel like it's necessary for me to be out there, so I kind of try and commiserate with people who can't be out there and focus on training. But it's definitely super bad on all of the businesses here that rely on climbers, because we are in prime season, and although this is not the holiday season, usually people have a sort of quite steady income from renting out Airbnbs and gîtes and stuff like that, because that's when climbers, serious climbers, come to stay here because the conditions are good, and that's obviously not happening. So loads of people are out of pocket because of that. And then the gyms, they suffer because they're all closed. The one good thing is that the forest gets a respite, and it's actually incredibly important because, with 13 million visitors to the forest every year, just giving it some time to breathe, I think that there should be a regular time of the year when the forest is off bounds, so that it could, obviously that's just not something that's going to happen. But just give the forest a break so that it can regenerate. So that's what's happening now. And I guess it's good.
Maybe the break should actually be longer than the pandemic for the forest to regenerate.
I mean, the problem with the Fontainebleau forest is that it is actually not like a wild forest. The trees that grow here predominantly are pines, so they are not native trees to that kind of forest. So this forest is not like a proper wild habitat, and I don't think it ever will be again. But definitely if it gets a break, it's good for the animals. It's good for erosion, because the vegetation takes over. And it's something that we should definitely think about, how we can take that as a lesson for the future, for the time when there is no pandemic, but how can we still be respectful of the forest and still give it some respite from all of our visits.
And there's another topic that we heard about in Fontainebleau a few weeks ago, that there's a company called Bridge Oil that wants to start drilling for oil in the south of Fontainebleau.
Yeah.
And there's an online petition that a lot of climbers have already seen and signed, I guess. Yeah. Maybe you know anything what is happening there, because sometimes it's hard to find new information, because there's a group that I guess has organized around this topic, but they are writing a lot in French.
Yeah.
And I can't understand everything. So
for sure.
Is there anything new there?
I think the last sort of developments were at the end of October. Basically, because of the lockdown, not very much is happening in France. Like, the whole country is at a standstill. And I certainly hope that this doesn't mean that Bridgeoil, the company that's planning this development, will have a sort of freer opportunity to do what they want to do. I hope that this will not end up like that. But basically, the situation at the moment is that they want to put those 10 new oil wells south of Fontainebleau. The authorities here are against it. So the local inhabitants and their sort of council, then the authorities in Paris, the mayor of Paris, the water supplier of Paris, everybody's against that. And on top of that, there is this public inquiry going on, which is supposed to conclude, I believe, in January 2021. But obviously that's under a big question mark now with the pandemic. That might be delayed. But basically, first we need to have the sort of official outcome of that public inquiry. And there is a public inquiry commissioner, which is supposed to be this objective observer gathering information from all sides. So in this situation, it is Bridgeoil, the company that's planning the development. It's the local inhabitants, and then it's people concerned by this development. So the Water Authority of Paris, because where the drilling is to happen, that's where there is a water catchment zone that provides water to 300,000 inhabitants, including central Paris. So, like, on the banks of the Seine in central Paris, like the most iconic districts of Paris, their tap water comes from the catchment zone in Nonville, where there's supposed to be that development. So hopefully because of that, hopefully because of the fact that Parisians are affected, that will give the opposition to the project enough weight to stop it.
Can you see that it will also influence the bouldering area of Fontainebleau? So as you said, it's going to influence the drinking water, maybe?
It has certainly the potential to cause contamination of drinking water in the area. And in the documents that are provided by the developer, it says that the risk of contamination is low to medium, which sounds like a pretty high risk if you ask me. Like, medium risk of contaminating water. Let's not worry about it and go ahead. No. And then, if that water gets polluted, it's not only obviously the tap water. It would be, I'm not a geologist, so it's quite hard for me to have like a very precise idea. But if in general water in the area gets contaminated and the water that gets delivered then to taps gets contaminated, that also means that in general the groundwater and that just flows through that area gets contaminated and potentially poisons the forest, which is literally 4 kilometers away from where they want to drill. And it's also like, it's not only bouldering that's going to be affected. There is a pony club like right next to the development. So there is a fence, and on one side of the fence there is a well that's already there, and on the other side of the fence there are ponies. So there's a lot of like outdoor recreation, a lot of organic farming, that kind of stuff. That's just all going to be completely wiped out in this area if that goes ahead. What's more, at the moment, the castle in Fontainebleau and the park around it is on the list of the UNESCO World Heritage. So the whole forest isn't. But last month, or perhaps 2 months ago, it was actually submitted to UNESCO as a proposed World Heritage Site. So the whole forest would get protected with some villages around it as well. And there is a map of that planned World Heritage area that was created for the sake of this submission. And the crazy thing is that around Nonville, around the village where they want to drill those 10 new wells, it's like a landlocked island. Landlocked island, that makes no sense. Basically, it's like a little surrounded circle, and all around it is protected, and the Nonville area isn't, just because of the development. So that means that if there is some money coming into the area, to protect the forest, to protect nature, to protect historical buildings and stuff, everybody in the area will benefit, apart from the village of Nonville. So not only they will get 10 stinky oil wells in their village, they will also be cut off funds for development of like sustainable farming, tourism and stuff like that.
So yeah, it's an important topic to like read about if anyone hasn't read about that. And the petition is still online and can be signed. So. There's still a chance that you can influence the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good. The more people know about it and the more people talk about it, it's really helpful, because a lot of people are asking like, oh, what can we do? Well, at this stage, what we can do is make sure that the issue is talked about, it's loud. And we already had the issue featured in the French media, also sort of like mainstream national level media, so that's really great. And the more sort of public outrage there is about this situation, the bigger the chance that they will actually be stopped, because basically the local authorities, and by that I mean Paris, will really have to stand up against them.
Mm-hmm. So I will, of course, link the petition also together with this episode. So if you haven't read that by now, you can do that. And are there any other topics that you were hearing about, reading about these days? Topics from the climbing scene that you think, okay, these topics are coming up now in these times, in these Corona times?
There is just so much going on that I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, so many bad and good things happening that I think it's actually hard to process it all. A lot of us have more time these days because of the pandemic, and it just means that we are just bombarded with all of these news, not only from the climbing world, but from the world in general. And processing that is just so hard. So I wouldn't even know where to start. We haven't spoken since, when was the Feldheldinnen?
That was 1 week before this first kind of lockdown in Germany in March.
Yes, because I actually was scared that I'm gonna be stuck in Berlin.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're saying that basically there are actually more people climbing outdoors in Germany because of this?
Yeah, that's what I heard. So I live in Berlin. I'm not spending so much time in the outdoor areas, but I hear from the people in the outdoor areas that also this summer, more and more people like gathered outdoors. Maybe also because they thought that it's better to meet like in the fresh air, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And not go to the gyms, and that there are some problems in the outdoor climbing bouldering scene that, yes, the places get too crowded.
Wow, yeah, no, for sure. Like, there must be so many people who would normally be at the gym, at the crags, and yeah, without sort of education about how to behave in the outdoors, it's going to be tricky to maintain sustainability in our outdoor pursuits. Like, the last time I went to the forest, I saw a rock that was before completely unknown, completely covered in chalk and tick marks, and there was toilet paper everywhere. I was just like, are you kidding me? So I think somebody was probably breaking the lockdown rules and making the outdoors into a gym. That was not a very good sight.
The people should think about that a little bit more, that the outdoor areas are not like the gyms, and that you have to clean all the stuff on your own, and maybe also clean the things that the other people left there.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I really would like to see professional athletes speak up about, because I guess, you know, we get so many like videos these days of like cutting edge ascents and people, you know, climbing V15 left, right and center, and they put tick marks, which, you know, we put tick marks, we're climbers, we sometimes need a tick mark. And then a lot of people watch it and they think like, oh yeah, you just paint tick marks on the rock like it's, you know, like your canvas. But I think it should be like a responsibility for those super high level athletes to say something like at the end of your video, hey, I cleaned those tick marks and I didn't leave my toilet paper at the crag.
So we need those videos, not only from the sense, but also those before and after situation.
Yeah, for sure.
But maybe it's also because years ago, before like the gym scene was growing so much, maybe it was more like people took other people to the outdoor areas and educated them, and now
there was like a mentorship situation.
Yeah, we don't have this mentorship situation anymore, and the people in the YouTube videos should start being these mentors again, those mentors that we had in person like years ago, and then they should be now mentors, like saying how to behave outdoors.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to me, that would make so much sense, because before, if you wanted to get into climbing, you had to actually know somebody in person who would like take you outside and, help you learn the ins and outs of it. And then you would learn how to behave in the outdoors from them. But now you open YouTube and you watch a video that says like what to take bouldering outdoors, how to start bouldering outdoors, or you just see somebody sending and you're like, oh yeah, I'll do that too. But I think we should like realize that everything we put out there about climbing should sort of reflect the responsible practices that we should cultivate. I don't know, like I think there is a conversation to be had there about like responsibility and in how we share about climbing, for sure.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, if you want to see or want to read it, you read that, I think. I know people who like under every post when they go out bouldering outdoors, there are these hashtags like leave no trace and everything. But maybe we need that a little bit more prominent.
Yeah, I think so. Especially like, because there are so many hashtags. There are so many, as I said earlier, like we are bombarded with so much information, and especially people who are sponsored athletes, they put so many obligations to their sponsors, and it's quite difficult for their followers to know what is important that they're putting out there and what is just like a part of the deal that they have going on. And sometimes you might be like, oh yeah, they're posting about this product because they have to, I don't care. At other times they might be like, oh, I really care because this product is for me. But then there should be like this ethics side to it, and it should be pushed to the forefront, I think, because otherwise we're really gonna, I don't know if you've seen, there is this Stone Locals movie.
Oh, yes.
It's so good. And then the German guy talking about Fontainebleau flowers, like just toilet paper.
I know. Yeah, you need to watch this, Stone Locals. It's a great movie.
So I thought that this sort of like concern for preserving the natural places as much as possible that was visible in that was really quite important.
Zofia, thanks for the short chat.
Yeah, thank you for catching up.
It's really good to hear from you.
Likewise. I hope we're going to be able to see one another in a slightly more immediate way.
Yeah.
Very soon.
But somehow I feel we always meet again.
That's true.
It will
That's
happen.
True. Either Germany or France, we always bump to one another at the rocks or at the gym.
Yeah,
Which is good. Thanks so much.
This was my short lockdown talk with Zofia Reych, founder of the Womens Bouldering Festival in Fontainebleau. We talked about the petition against oil drilling in Fontainebleau, and of course you will find the link to this in the show notes. And I will link the interesting Patagonia film that Zofia mentioned, and of course also her social media accounts. So check the show notes in your podcast app or on wegbouldern.de. Thanks for listening. Juliana mein Name und ich bin weg bouldern. Well, not really.